Grylls, the TV presenter who likes to go to cold places and make fires out of twigs and stuff, a sort of guy who's never grown out of being a Boy Scout, has now apparently written a book about Jesus. And in a promotional tweet about it, he put out a video in which he explained the story of Jesus as being that of a Palestinian refugee. It doesn't bode well for the book. I'm not sure who's going to want to buy a book from a man that's that stupid. There's literally no way anybody can interpret the story of Jesus and Christmas in that way. Palestinians, of course, didn't exist. Jesus and Mary weren't refugees. They were on their way to be counted in a census by the Romans. He just showed a sort of unique level of ignorance. Maybe he should stick to the TV presenting. I've always wondered what it was he was trying to compensate for with the kind of macho man appearance and activities. Now I think we know it's a distinct lack of intellect and historical knowledge, but that hasn't stopped him writing the book. I don't think it's going to do very well, if you ask me, if that's the level of insult that he throws, not just at Jews, because of course Jesus and Mary were Jewish, so it's somewhat anti-Semitic to try and cancel that element of Christian history by calling them Palestinian, but it's also quite insulting to Christianity that he wants to try to tie the Christmas story, the story of Jesus, to the people who most recently burst across Israel's border and raped and slaughtered and kidnapped people within Israel. I don't know why anybody would try to tie those two things together, but that's definitely what Bear Grylls has done here. I think he should stick to the day job and go and build an igloo and try and survive somewhere cold or something.
Yeah, put the kettle on, mate. The institutional narrative here as well, because I heard similar contours. It was my fault for watching the BBC on the Christmas morning, but the Bishop of Leeds piped up with something about Jesus being a refugee in an occupied territory. And I'm thinking to myself, what's he talking about? And this is the Bear Grylls sort of ABC book of history. He didn't mention the P word, the Palestinian word, but nevertheless, there's this narrative going on, which is a sort of element of what perhaps other people might call supersessionism, where I don't want to get into too much of a theological debate here, but this idea that Christianity becomes the new children of Israel. And I think that for peace and peace's sake, that we should all sort of stay out of our narratives and accept the kind of Old Testament story and the New Testament story. That they are different. They are different books, and they can coexist with each other.
Well, I just think it's also weird when you see people like this, perhaps just for publicity for this book, but trying to tie the stories of the origins of Christianity to modern day conflicts like that in the Middle East. It's just utterly misguided and myopic, because the two don't really have anything to do with each other, and the attempt to slam them together in that way to show some sort of virtue signalling, I believe he's found religion himself as an adult, but it doesn't really show much depth of exploration of the religion, if you ask me. In order to misunderstand it that much, you either have to be ignorant or just be somebody with very little goodwill, because it's not possible to try to glue those two things together. And I would say that the reason it's somewhat anti-Semitic is that to deny Mary's and Jesus's Judaism, they were born in Judea, for goodness sake, the clue's in the name, and just it's a famous part of the story. I think it just displays an enormous amount of bad will from somebody at this season of goodwill related to what's apparently their own religion. I don't know why people need to do that. I don't think we need to compete over Jesus and try to attach him to current political causes, which themselves, as I said in this case, the Palestinians are at the moment not having their finest hour. They're deeply connected with the horrors that were carried out on October the 7th. And I think that that's not something that many people would want to associate with their religion, except perhaps Islam, because many of the attackers did so whilst shouting about jihad and a nation of jihad and the need to sacrifice thousands of Muslims in order to search for that nation of jihad. But I'm not sure that that's something that Bear Grylls should be doing to Christianity. I'm not a Christian, I'm a Jew, so it's not necessarily my place, but I just don't understand why anyone would do that. And I think that these increasing tendencies for people to try to politicize their religion and to try to tie it to that conflict, it's just really troubling. I think that in a way, it's one of these thinly veiled attempts to just bash Israel, bash the Jewish state from a position that tries to add a level of spiritual authority as well by saying that it's somehow religiously...
and delegitimize the state and ultimately try and call for its destruction.